Arkansas State looking to mix in a little stability with its recent success. Mark Rogers TV continuing to preview 2014, and we're talking Arkansas State football with the head man himself, first-year head coach Blake Anderson. Coach, thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be here, man. Appreciate you having me.
All right, Coach, this is your first year with Arkansas State, but looking back over the previous 3 seasons and winning, or at least sharing, conference championships, coming off an 8-5 year, another bowl victory for these kids. 5 years, 5 head coaches, you being the 5th. You've got to be impressed with what these kids have been able to perform on the field despite all this transition and adjustment.
Very much so. Nobody's been through what we've been through, and to be able to pull together and win 3 straight it's hard to do when you've got stability, much less when you've gone through 3 different staffs. Just says a lot about what kids we're dealing with and how well I think they recruited before we got here, and a lot about just the overall community and Red Wolf Nation, I think, to how everybody's pulled together and kind of held this group together through all the different transition. But the more I get to be around them, the more I realize it is a special group, and there's just something about how they've rallied together and become a family.
Coach, spring football is important for any program, but especially when a first-year head coach comes into the fold. What were you trying to accomplish during the spring session, and what did you accomplish that's going to set you up for August?
Well, we play fast, so tempo was a big part of what we spent a lot of time on, especially offensively, to try to create the type of tempo and transition that we want. Let our defense figure out how it's going to be to play against those type of teams. So we spent a lot of time on tempo, and that was not very good early, but got better throughout day 15. I thought it was a good step in the right direction. We had to get our foundations both offensively and defensively in place, and we did. I thought the guys grasped what we were doing fairly well. We were able to get a good bit of what we want to do. We could play this season with what we put in the spring. We're going to probably add to it, but we got enough in through 15 days to say we had a solid foundation offensively and defensively down. And then really we got to identify who our playmakers were. We've seen some on film, but we need to find out who could play at different positions, especially in special teams. So we spent a lot of time trying to identify our core special teams players. And then finally we want to try to stay as healthy as we could. And for the most part we did. We had a few guys get banged up, but we didn't kill ourselves so much that we won't be able to play either.
Very good. You've got a quarterback situation where you lose your starter, Adam Kennedy. He was very efficient. You bring in Fredi Knighten. Fortunately, he threw a couple passes just about every game the entire season, then got extended play during the bowl game against Ball State, and he turned in a pretty nice performance, pretty efficient at 15 for 20 with a touchdown pass. So your thoughts on Fredi Knighten, and also is there competition for the job?
Well, there is competition for the job with both a new quarterback that came in, is already here on campus, James Tabry. We've got Cameron Burris and Stephen Hogan. He won the job. He did that, I think, through how he played at the end of the season last year. The bowl game, I thought he did a great job, other than one critical mistake late in the fourth quarter. I thought he played really, really well, and he came back from that mistake and finished up under a lot of pressure to win the game. So that gave us an idea of what we had. But really, from day one of spring ball, and maybe even the several weeks and months before spring ball, he started to emerge as the leader on our team, and it became obvious that he's the guy that we're going to follow. He had the best spring. He was the most consistent. Still turns the ball over too much. We got to correct that with all of them. But he is the guy that's dynamic. He loves football. He's learned really well. He leads by example, and he gives us our best chance to win. So, it's his to lose, and he knows that every day is a competition, and those other guys know that's what they're shooting for. But I think our team has rallied around him pretty well.
Coach Anderson, you lose some production at wide receiver, but you've got the #1 guy coming back in J.D. McKissic. And to look at his numbers over the last 2 years are just eye-popping. 103 receptions a couple years ago, caught 82 last year. The one thing that stands out to me, though, low yards per catch, probably a product of the offense, about 8 or 9 yards per catch. Your thoughts on J.D. and how you can spring him loose, and what the passing attack looks like overall at the wide receiver position?
Well, we got really lucky to come in with a guy like in place. He fits what we do really, really well. We've had we call him the A-back, an all-purpose type guy. We've had those guys in the past, and if you've watched our our bowl games, our championship games, they've always been MVPs of this game or that. Their production's been really high. He gives us a chance to continue to do that at the highest level. We're going to hand it to him. We're going to throw it to him. And I think you're right. Because of the way that he gets the ball at times, I think that affects his yards per play. But we don't really even look at that number. We just looked at productivity and opportunity to stretch the field and spread the field, and he's going to do so many different things. I think he'll carry the ball more than you've seen in the past. He's definitely going to line up in a lot of different places. We know how good he is. We know what he brings to the table, so we're going to utilize him as best we can. I tell him get a lot of rest, and get a lot of fluids because he's going to need it.
Good stuff, especially in that offense, no doubt about that. So let's start up front with the offensive line as well, because it all starts right there. Despite what kind of offense you're running, got to have the guys blocked on the other side. So you got Bryce Giddens, kind of leads the offensive line. He's on the Remington watch list right now. Running back Michael Gordon, fortunately for you, he's back after a very productive season, almost 800 yards and 10 touchdowns. So how do you balance running the football, and how important is it for you? I hate to say establish the run, because maybe you reverse that and you establish the pass first and then you run off that. But the running game, what kind of role does that play in this offense?
Well, it's really, I know people think of us as a spread team and that we're just going to sling it all the time. But if you look at our past history, we've been around 200 yards a game average rushing team for years. I mean, it's always been something that we definitely want to establish the run game. We just do it a little differently. It doesn't always look the same as some other teams, but we're going to run the ball. We're going to make you stop the run. I still firmly believe that you've got to run the ball and be able to stop the run to win championships. So I'm glad we've got Mike back there. We got Bryce that anchors the O-line. We've got Tyler Greaves, Jamar Clark, Colton Jackson are guys that all have had reps and have played in some games. We don't have as much experience up there as we'd like, but all those guys have been in the trenches some. We're going to be thin up front. I think that you hear that a lot, but it's going to be the truth for us. We really need to stay healthy, but that gives us a chance. And Freddie being able to run the ball as effectively as he can, and JD as well. There's more pieces to the puzzle than just the 5-0 lineman and the running back. We're going to utilize every phase of what we got. It allows us to be more explosive.
Definitely there. And one more question on the offense. You mentioned some of the past success that you've had. We talked about what you did at North Carolina. Look at the last bowl game against a very strong Cincinnati defense, and you were very effective there. Do these kids, do you sense that they have confidence knowing that you have a track record in what you've done in this offense? How much of a transition has it been for them based on what they did in the past offensively?
Well, they haven't been in anything quite like this for a couple of years, so some of them haven't seen anything at all. The transition went fairly well. I think they're excited. When you look at the numbers and you look at our records and our numbers from the past, I think they get excited. They know there's an opportunity to do some really fun things offensively. I don't know that they knew what kind of work they were in for. So to play fast, you got to practice fast. So they get a lot of running in during practice, but for the most part, they've been excited about it, the opportunity, and we've shown them every way we can that it's going to be fun for them to do. It's asked a lot, and it's the wideouts and skill guys especially.
And it's probably a test for the defense, too. They got to keep up with these guys and keep up with your offense just practicing against this offense. And when we look at the defense, Coach, maybe not down the depth chart, you lose some production there, but just in terms of your main cornerstone of this defense, you got 6 guys coming back that played all 13 games last year and tons of production, starting at linebacker with Quishan Lee, 134 total tackles last year for him. Your third leading tackler, Sterling Young at safety, defensive end Chris Stone, and we could go on, had 9.5 tackles for loss. Rocky Hayes, premier player with 3 interceptions coming back from last season. Your thoughts about the defense? Are you going to do anything different than has been done in the past?
Well, the scheme will be a little bit different. It will look similar. We'll line down kind of the same with a 4 down front, and we're a 4-2-5, which is what they're used to a little bit. There is a lot of experience coming back, which is good to know. I mean, we're fired up about that. We're thin at some places, especially up front, with losing a great one to the NFL, and we had a tragedy of losing our teammates in January, and so those are things that just create some holes inside. But I like the fact that we do have some guys that played a lot of snaps. Q-Lee just always seems to be around the ball. Chris Stone is a high-energy guy off the edge. The back end is all in place and has played a lot of games together, so you feel really stable. We need some young guys on the edges with pass rush. We need some young guys to help us at D-line. I thought that Hugh Heath and Xavier Woodson and Frankie Jackson all did a good job in the spring of stepping up and starting to create some opportunities and make some plays, and so that will kind of round out the back end for us. And Chris Humes is a guy that doesn't get talked about a whole lot, but I tell you, he just always seems to end up around the ball as a leader for us. Andrew Tryon at the other corner spot. There's a lot of names over there that if you watch games, if you watch last year and the year before, those guys have made a lot of plays. So I feel good about our stability, not real good about our depth. We need some young guys to step in and take some number 2 roles for us.
All right, Coach, look at this schedule. Wow. I don't know that there are a lot of Power 5 conference teams that are playing this kind of schedule the first 4 weeks of the season. So Montana State, don't know that a lot of people out there know a whole bunch about Montana State, but we've heard of Tennessee, Miami, Utah State, very underrated football program, what they've done in the past couple years. So right into the fire with some tough, very difficult competition. Do you think these kids will respond? And do you talk about the schedule? Do you talk about the opponents overall, not just week to week?
We really talk about Montana State, and that's it. We've got our hands full just getting ready, with it being my first game and their first game underneath our staff. Just prepare for the first one and try to win them one game at a time. I mean, it's hard not to look at the schedule board and see that, yeah, it's a tough run. We know that it's 4 quality opponents. Montana State's typically a playoff team in their league and compete for championship. And obviously we had an SEC team, an ACC team, and a team that played for their conference title in Utah State. So, yeah, we're not blind to the fact that it's a really tough start, but we're just going to concentrate on Montana State, try to take them 1 week at a time, and find out what kind of team we have.
Okay, Coach, regardless of what happens the first 4 weeks, the Sun Belt Championship's right there for you for possibly a 4th consecutive season, at least sharing the championship. Blake Anderson, we appreciate so much, Coach, you coming on, and good luck this season.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.